You're sitting at your desk the night before an exam. Notes open, laptop glowing. Your phone face down buzzing. You tell yourself 5 minutes, just one scroll. Suddenly it's midnight and nothing moved except time. That sinking feeling hits. You feel lazy, broken behind everyone else, like there's something wrong with you that other students don't have. And the worst part isn't the grade you already expect tomorrow. It's that question creeping in. Why can't I control myself? You start labeling it as who you are. Bad at discipline. Bad at focus. Maybe just not built for this. Meanwhile, other students lock in, grind, and move forward while you stay stuck negotiating with your brain and losing each time. But here's the twist. This isn't about motivation. It's about control. And once you understand that, everything changes. So how do you fix this? Not with motivation, but with control. Here's the hard reframe you've been avoiding. The problem was never laziness. It was never intelligence. It's not even discipline in the way people romanticize it. The real issue is simpler and more uncomfortable. You let your brain vote. Every impulse gets a say. Every emotion gets equal authority. And predictably, the weakest voice in the room, long-term consequence, loses every time. The Stoics called this slavery. Epictetus was blunt about it. The moment you obey every thought, you give up command of yourself. Not to circumstances. Not to other people. To impulses. Discomfort whispers, avoid, pleasure whispers, delay, and you comply like it's a law. That's where suffering actually starts. This isn't about hyping yourself up. Motivation is unreliable under pressure. The Stoics knew that, which is why they built systems for action when motivation is zero. Roman generals didn't wait to feel ready. Philosophers didn't wait to feel focused. They trained control, over attention, impulses, and response, because chaos doesn't ask how inspired you are. In this section, I'm not selling hope. I'm promising structure. You're going to learn 8 Stoic-based principles designed to force consistent study even if you're burned out, phone addicted, ashamed of how far behind you are, or convinced you've tried everything. Cross mark surface problem. I need motivation. Check mark real problem. You lack command over attention and impulses. But before we get tactical, you need to understand why this approach works, and why everything else keeps failing you. Stoicism is not about being calm, emotionless, or pretending stress doesn't exist. That's the Instagram version for people who don't read. Real Stoicism is about control, specifically, control over actions when emotions are loud and uncooperative. The Stoics never aimed to eliminate feelings. They aimed to strip feelings of authority. Modern productivity culture teaches the opposite. It tells you to get motivated, align your vibes, wait until you feel ready. That's not self-improvement. That's permission to delay. From a Stoic lens, waiting until you feel like doing the work is weakness, not morally, but mechanically. You've outsourced action to mood. And mood is unstable. Psychology backs this up cleanly. Your limbic system runs on dopamine, comfort, and avoidance. It wants short-term relief. Your prefrontal cortex handles planning, restraint, and long-term outcomes. When you feel unmotivated and obey it, you're letting the limbic system dominate. Discipline isn't hype, it's the prefrontal cortex asserting control despite resistance. That's why motivation fades and systems endure. As a student, this matters more than talent. Your grades, focus, confidence, and even how people perceive you are downstream of attention control. If you can't command where your attention goes, everything else degrades: studying, self-respect, momentum. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your level of control. The 8 principles you're about to learn are not tips. They're a sequential system. Each rule builds authority over the next layer. Thoughts right pointing arrow, impulses right pointing arrow, actions right pointing arrow, identity. Skip steps and it collapses. Follow the order and compliance becomes automatic. Cross mark modern approach. Emotional, reactive, motivation dependent. Check mark Stoic approach. Command driven, strategic, identity based. Now that you understand the foundation, let's break this down, starting with the most important rule. Point 1. Imperium Mentis, command over the mind. Here's the failure pattern. You don't decide to study, you debate it. You open your notes while simultaneously negotiating with your own resistance. I'll start after this video. Let me get in the mood. 5 minutes won't hurt. That internal argument is already a loss. You've turned action into a referendum, and impulses always outvote consequences. Epictetus was precise about this. Thoughts are impulses, not orders. They arise automatically. You don't summon them, and you're not obligated to obey them. The mistake is treating every thought like it deserves a response. It doesn't. Negotiation implies equality. There is none. One side wants comfort, the other wants progress. If they're equal, comfort wins. The Stoic solution is command, not conversation. You pre-decide your study time before resistance shows up. Not, I'll try to study, not, I should study, not, I will study if I feel focused. Choice language keeps the door open. Commands close it. Action comes first, emotion catches up later, or doesn't. It doesn't matter. A Roman general didn't pull soldiers on morale before issuing orders. He gave the command, then dealt with the consequences. You do the same. Open the book. Start the timer. Write the first line. Momentum is not a feeling, it's a byproduct of movement. Ignore this rule and procrastination stops being a habit. It becomes identity. You don't say, I delayed. You say, I'm the kind of person who can't focus. That's how self-betrayal compounds. Cross mark wrong way, arguing with resistance. Check mark Stoic way, issuing commands. Upward trend result, immediate action without motivation. But even command fails if your environment is hostile. Point 2. Hostile terrain, why willpower dies in bad environments. Most students try to enforce discipline in an environment designed to defeat it. Phone within reach. Notifications live. Bed nearby. Tabs open. You're issuing commands from enemy territory. Then you act surprised when you lose. Stoics understood terrain. Control isn't just internal, it's structural. If your surroundings constantly stimulate the limbic system, your prefrontal cortex is forced into permanent defense. That's not strength training, that's exhaustion. Modern advice says, just resist. Stoic logic says that's inefficient. You don't test discipline against unnecessary temptation. You remove the battlefield advantage. The goal isn't heroic resistance, it's automatic compliance. Every cue in your environment either reinforces command or invites negotiation. A buzzing phone isn't neutral. It's an order disguised as information. Each interruption resets authority. Attention fractures. Confidence follows. This is why students with equal intelligence diverge massively. One studies in controlled conditions. The other studies inside a dopamine minefield and calls the failure, lack of motivation. When the environment is aligned, commands stick. When it's hostile, even strong intent collapses. Discipline isn't about enduring chaos longer than others. It's about engineering obedience so effort drops, and consistency rises. Ignore this and you'll keep mistaking fatigue for weakness. Now that internal command and external terrain are clear, we move to the next layer, where impulses are cut off before they even form. Point 3. Memento Temporis, awareness of time. The reason you waste hours isn't stupidity or even distraction. It's time blindness. You don't feel time passing, so you treat it as infinite. Scrolls blur together. Small breaks stretch into entire evenings. And because nothing feels lost in the moment, nothing triggers urgency. Seneca warned about this directly. People are not short on time, they are careless with it. Time isn't a resource you spend. It's life itself leaking away in invisible increments. When you say, I'll start later, you're not delaying work. You're donating pieces of your future to comfort. The Stoic fix is visibility. What's invisible can't be defended. Time blocking isn't about productivity aesthetics. It's about forcing reality into your awareness. When a block starts, it starts. When it ends, it ends. No vague, study tonight. No elastic hours. Pair this with visible countdowns, timers you can't ignore. The brain behaves differently when loss is measurable. Abstract time invites waste. Concrete time demands respect. Think of it like currency with a hole in your pocket. If you can't see the money falling out, you'll keep walking. That's what most students do with hours. Days vanish, weeks blur. Then suddenly it's finals, graduation, or regret, and you can't explain where the time went. Ignore this principle and nothing dramatic happens. That's the danger. Years disappear quietly. And quiet losses are the hardest to forgive. Point 4. Identity before outcomes. Most students treat studying as a task they do, not a person they are. That's why consistency collapses. Every session requires willpower. Every setback feels personal. You're trying to drag an identity that doesn't match the behavior across the finish line. The Stoics flip this. Act as the man you wish to be. Not after success. Before it. Identity comes first. Outcomes follow. When you study only to get grades, studying feels like a chore imposed on you. When you study as the kind of person who studies, action feels aligned. This isn't motivation. It's coherence. Your brain resists behaviors that conflict with identity and complies with behaviors that reinforce it. This is the difference between a uniform and a costume. A costume comes off when it's uncomfortable. A uniform signals role, duty, and expectation to yourself first. If disciplined student is just something you pretend to be during exams, inconsistency is guaranteed. You'll always default back. Identity-based commitment removes negotiation. You don't ask whether you feel like acting in character. You act because that's who you are. Mood becomes irrelevant. Results become inevitable over time. Ignore this and you'll live in cycles, bursts of effort, long collapses, endless restarts. Not because you lack ability, but because you never resolve the identity conflict. Point 5. Voluntary hardship training. You avoid discomfort like it's poison. Late night cramming, challenging problems, social friction, you dodge all of it. And every time you avoid, your brain learns, pain is intolerable. That's why you collapse after 5 minutes of concentration, scroll endlessly, or quit when a question gets hard. Comfort is a trap. Marcus Aurelius didn't escape hardship, he sought it, even in small doses. He exposed himself to cold baths, long marches, and exhausting routines to train resilience. The lesson: discipline is a muscle, and discomfort is the gym. Start small but deliberate. Take time discomfort reps. 5 minutes without phone. 10 minutes working on a problem you hate. Push your body and mind slightly beyond resistance. The more you expose yourself strategically, the more tolerance grows. Fatigue becomes manageable. Pain becomes a tool. Your focus is no longer hostage to comfort. Think of it like weight training for your mind. Just as muscles tear and rebuild stronger, your discipline fractures under discomfort and reforms sturdier. Ignore it, and every new challenge feels unbearable, like lifting weights you've never trained for. Neglect this principle, and your study sessions remain fragile. Any minor obstacle collapses your effort. Procrastination thrives. Confidence dies quietly. But embrace discomfort intentionally, and you cultivate endurance few peers will ever touch. Discipline stops being luck, it becomes default. Transition to point 6. But even when you've trained your tolerance, most students ruin results with scattered attention. That's where single task dominance changes everything. Point 6. Single task dominance. Multitasking feels productive. You think you're smarter juggling phone notifications, group chat memes, and lecture notes at once. But it's an illusion. Your brain never focuses. Each switch fragments attention, creating shallow work and shallow learning. Stoics understood presence. Epictetus emphasized acting with full attention on the task at hand. The moment you scatter focus, you scatter results. Discipline isn't just about starting, it's about sustaining. Deep focus sprints are the fix. Set a timer for 25 to 50 minutes. Commit to one task. No notifications. No background music that distracts. When it ends, rest intentionally, then repeat. This trains the prefrontal cortex to dominate impulses, not the limbic system. Attention becomes a controllable resource. Imagine a spear versus a shotgun. A spear pierces deeply. A shotgun scatters pellets. Multitasking spreads your effort thin, producing nothing that penetrates. Focused sprints, like a spear, strike hard and precise. Ignore this and you'll flit between tasks, proud of getting things done, but achieving nothing meaningful. Your grades plateau. Knowledge stays superficial. Confidence erodes. Depth requires singularity of effort. Master this, and each session counts exponentially more than double the time spent distracted. Point 7. Momentum over motivation. You sit there, staring at your notes, waiting for the perfect mood to strike. I'll start when I feel like it, you tell yourself. Hours pass. Days pass. Motivation is a fickle friend, unreliable, temperamental, and cruel. Waiting for it guarantees nothing gets done. You know the feeling. A stalled car, wheels spinning, engine off, while life moves past. Marcus Aurelius understood this intuitively. Action generates emotion. You don't wait for courage to appear, you build it by moving. Stoics called this principle premeditatio actio. Predecide the act, and your mind follows. The shift is simple but brutal. Start, no negotiation, no, if I feel like it. Here's the rule: first 5 minutes are non-negotiable. Open the textbook, write the first line, solve the first problem. No excuses. Action feeds momentum, momentum builds identity. Soon, the resistance that seemed immovable shrinks. Starting becomes easier than stopping. Think of it like pushing a stalled car. You push once, nothing moves. Push again. Slowly, the wheels roll. Keep pushing. Momentum carries the load. Ignore it, and you stay stuck forever, eternally waiting for a signal that never comes. Your potential rots in idle hesitation, while others pass you effortlessly. Embrace this rule, and motivation stops controlling you. Action does. Energy follows commitment, not mood. Momentum locks in success before feelings even arrive. Transition to point 8. And once momentum is running, the final principle cements control, how to make these gains permanent, even under pressure. Point 8. Environment is command center. Even the strongest will collapse if your environment betrays you. Your desk is cluttered, phone buzzing, friends distracting. You're negotiating attention with chaos, and chaos always wins. Most students blame themselves, but the real enemy is where you operate. Seneca warned that our surroundings shape our character. Stoic wisdom isn't just internal, it's external. Command your space, and your mind follows. Remove visual temptations, silence notifications, create zones where focus is non-negotiable. Make the environment an ally, not a saboteur. Start with micro changes. Desk cleared, phone in another room, study playlist ready. Every repeated setup builds a cue. The brain learns, this is work time. Focus is default. Small signals compound. Identity and environment reinforce each other. Picture it like a fortress. Without walls, even the bravest soldiers fall. With walls, discipline, strategy, and routine, your focus is protected. Ignore this, and distractions are siege engines, your effort crumbles. Grades stagnate. Confidence erodes. Focus becomes luck. Take control, and you build an automatic system. Environment triggers action before thought or feeling interferes. Momentum, focus, and discipline persist effortlessly. Even when fatigue, boredom, or social pressure arrives, your study system is armored. Success becomes default, not negotiation. Section 8. Summary plus integration. Let's pull this together. You've learned 8 principles designed to take control where you've been surrendering to impulses. First, Imperium Mentis, command your mind, don't debate it. Second, structure a studi, shape your routine so action is automatic. Third, Memento Temporis, treat every minute like currency, stop letting hours leak. Fourth, identity before outcomes, act like the student you want to be, not the one you feel like. Fifth, voluntary hardship, build tolerance for discomfort, your focus is a muscle. Sixth, single task dominance, master depth over shallow multitasking. Seventh, momentum over motivation, start before you feel ready, action creates energy. Eighth, environment is command center, surround yourself with cues that enforce focus automatically. The Stoics understood that control creates discipline, discipline creates power, and power shapes life. This isn't a collection of random hacks. It's a layered system. Each principle reinforces the next, compounding over time. Start small. Pick one principle this week, integrate it fully, then add the next. You don't need perfection. Progress compounds faster than purity ever could. Imagine the endgame. Walking into class calm, confident, prepared. Grades rise without chaos. Peers notice your presence. You're no longer negotiating with distraction or mood. You've built an internal and external system that carries you forward. Consistency becomes your default. Cross mark scattered, half-baked hacks lead to stress and failure. Check mark layered, Stoic informed execution produces long-term mastery. Every principle is a lever. Pull them in sequence, and your study life transforms from reactive chaos into disciplined command. If you've made it this far, don't scroll past this like every other distracted student. Subscribe, because disciplined students don't. They don't passively consume advice, they apply it. You've just seen 8 ways to take command over your focus, time, and identity. Now it's your turn. Pick one rule tonight. Start before you feel ready. Apply it fully. That small action separates the students who transform from those who keep watching, keep procrastinating, and stay stuck. And here's a challenge. Comment below, which principle exposed you the most? Which one made you realize, I've been doing this all wrong? Seeing your own blind spots is where growth begins. Engage with it, own it, share it, that's how presence spreads. Next video. I'll show you why true discipline doesn't just improve grades, it makes you socially dangerous. It changes how people see you, how they respond to you, how you command a room without saying a word. Remember, control your mind, or it controls you. Passive scrolling keeps you average. Action, even imperfect action, compounds into mastery. Hit subscribe, commit to one principle tonight, and start building the version of yourself that other students notice, respect, and envy.